Hey, Kevin, how's it going?
Going great, Randy. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Awesome to have you. Everybody, welcome to episode 187 of Tech Sales Insights. Really excited to have on Kevin Guthrie, EVP of Sales at Alight Solutions. We have a great title topic, values-based leadership, which is something he exudes day in and day out. We're sponsored by Alexander Group, who's the go-to-market and sales compensation sponsor of Sales Community. The way I like to talk about them, no offense to a Bain or McKinsey, but Alexander Group has their kind of more, I call it blue collar consulting, get their fingernails dirty, get in the weeds, don't cost a fortune, but all things around compensation, channel, org development, go to market, kind of advising, consulting. Most of their folks are obviously amazing, been there over 20 plus years and have been doing a lot of great work for Sales Community Advisory Board members. And by chance, Kevin, I think you had some exposure to them at Oracle.
I did. Yep. Yeah. My great exposure to Light or to the Alexander Group was at Oracle, and they did really good work for us there.
Awesome. Very cool. And for those that are members of Sales Community, thanks. For those that are not, Tucker will throw up a free link, so feel free to join. Lots of great content and great members and advisory board members like Kevin that we have there as well. And by way of introduction, Kevin lives in Lafayette, California, which is San Francisco East Bay. Happily married for 26 years, so congratulations. We just celebrated our 29th by chance. And four lovely daughters, two in college, two out of college. One I was excited to hear was a backroads bike trip leader, which I've done several trips with college friends, and really cool. You have a daughter, Chloe, who's a SDR at Salesforce.
Yep. Yep. She just got started about a year ago, so she's doing really well over there.
Awesome. Shout out to her for sure. And you got to send me her address. Happy to send her a book for sure.
Thank you. I will.
Then Tucker, I don't know if I think we cannot put up the links now the way LinkedIn has done this, but if you can put the book link up, feel free. So also by way of introduction, so Kevin's a big golfer, does a lot for fitness, does cycling, does hiking. So certainly a great area for you to be living in there as well. And we're trying to figure out how we met, but we think it was kind of probably 3-4 years ago or so. We're both LPs in Stage 2 Capital, but had been at some meetings and always enjoyed go-to-market discussions with Kevin about kind of what you do and how you do it. And we often joke about, kind of how, old school things used to be and how it's just, things have, seems to be gotten off the rails a bit on the, sales world compared to what they used to be.
I'm with you. Yeah. I mean, we're just working every day on practicing the fundamentals, Randy, and so much of what you cover on your podcasts and in the tech sales community.
Awesome. And to help me with introductions, I have some nice comments from some mutual friends. So Jay Snyder, who's a Dynatrace and also a East Bay neighbor, I believe, says Kevin is a true professional that operates with integrity and authenticity. He leads from the front and leaves the ego behind. But above all, he's a downright good human. John Boucher, who you knew from the Oracle days and currently also Stage 2 Capital's operating partner, says Kevin was a fantastic leader in my organization. He managed multiple teams in different product areas at Oracle and always led authentically from the front. He was incredibly thoughtful with his plans and consistently delivered results. Most importantly, he always passed the beer test, which means would you want to sit and have a beer with Kevin? The answer is always a yes. So that's probably about as good a compliment as you can get from Bush.
Yeah. Good to hear.
So really, really good. So congrats on that.
Thank you.
Jumping in the questions here. So I always like to ask first job after college. So you were a Cal Poly English major, and your first job was at R.R. Donnelley?
That's right. Yeah. So when I graduated college, it wasn't a really robust, job market at the time. My first job was with a company called R.R. Donnelley and Sons Company, with R.R. Donnelley and Sons Financial as a customer service rep. So entry level job, but a great way to get my feet wet in business.
Yeah, I mean, early on, I remember there'd be, a lot. I used to joke with them. You basically get paid for selling paper, but obviously the paper had a lot of good things on there. But just great way to kind of break in your teeth on sales, huh?
It was pretty cool. That was my intent, was to get into sales. My dad was a stockbroker for 44 years with the same firm, so really a salesman. So he instilled in me a real interest in selling, and the idea that he infused in me was that it's great to be in a career where your upside is unlimited and is really attributed to your work ethic and your attitude. So that impacted me. So my entry into our Donnelly and Sons company was about eventually breaking into sales.
Awesome. And then if you can maybe quickly go through your impressive career from there.
Sure. Yeah, I'd like to. And you mentioned a couple of key people that I've interacted with in my career, Jay Snyder and John Boucher. And hopefully in the course of conversation today, we'll have a chance to talk about some of those people who had a big influence on me, including those two individuals and many others. But really, I wound up in tech sales by joining Hyperion Solutions. And I got a great break back in the day. I mean, I had no business getting into enterprise software, but I met a manager who believed in me. I was referred by a friend, and a manager who saw something in me and gave me a break. And that was really launched my career in enterprise software. That woman's name was Jill Horn, so it was terrific. And I worked at Hyperion for many years as an individual contributor, and then worked my way into a frontline manager role. And man, Hyperion was such a great company. There were so many great people I met there that I've continued to maintain contact with, many of whom are part of your community too, Randy. I'll tell you, one of the great things about Hyperion, if I may just kind of digress for a second.
Absolutely. Yeah, great company, great culture for sure.
It was great. And the software functioned as advertised. And every once in a while, we encounter challenges. If there was a challenge with a customer, it was usually there's some sort of implementation related challenge as opposed to a product challenge. But if there was a problem, we fixed it. And what I learned from Hyperion was that oftentimes our biggest critics could become our most outspoken advocates and evangelists, depending on how we handle the crisis. And that approach, focusing on the customer success, came from the top. And we had a CEO named Guthrie who was terrific. And he went on to great success with other companies, notably Splunk. But he was a great leader for Hyperion up and through our acquisition by Oracle. So after Hyperion, I was at Oracle and worked at Oracle for a number of years, which is where I interacted with John Boucher. And the great thing about Oracle was it really accelerated my career. It was a really exciting place to be in terms of just giving me more street cred, because Oracle is and was so well respected at the time. I felt it was kind of the land of A players. It was exciting to be a part of it. And again, it accelerated my career through working with folks like John Boucher. I was promoted into a role where I had a North America responsibility. So I went from kind of a regional Northern California leader to a North America leader at Oracle under Bush. And that was an organization that just really provided me great connections and, again, more street cred. One of the guys there that influenced me greatly at Oracle was a guy named Dave Keller. And if there are folks listening in that worked at Oracle, many of them would remember Dave Keller. I just referred to Dave as kind of a journeyman sales leader. And he introduced to me this concept of destination team, which has stuck with me through the years. And the idea of destination team is that by virtue of, for me, the respect we exhibit one another, the collaboration and teamwork that we foster as an organization, the manner in which we treat our customers, and the consistent performance we deliver will eventually make us into a destination team, meaning it's one in which the team members are proud to be a part, and it's one that others aspire to be on. And so that is always an aspirational goal for me everywhere I've been, to become a destination team. And that came from Dave Keller.
Awesome.
After Oracle, I chose to go to a company called Corporate Visions. And Corporate Visions is a sales and marketing consulting company. And I had been a beneficiary of its services, both at Hyperion and at Oracle. And so I went to Corporate Visions to be the global sales leader. It's a private equity owned business, so a small business that we grew and eventually sold to another private equity partner. And that's where I became acquainted with Jay. So Jay was a longtime customer and client and became a friend. And he now is also a neighbor. So Jay and I have maintained a relationship, and he's been something of a mentor and business partner to me too, which is terrific. The CEO at Corporate Visions is a guy named Joe Terry. And Joe also happens to be my brother-in-law. And he is the most goal-oriented individual I've ever met. He sets these big, audacious goals, and with great consistency, he achieves them. It's remarkable. And so I've tried to model myself in many ways after him from a goal-setting perspective. After we sold Corporate Visions, I was kind of at an inflection point in my career, debating where I derived the greatest joy, satisfaction, and fulfillments in my career. And it was at that point that I joined Tableau. And Tableau was a terrific company, the most mission-driven, values-based business I've ever been a part of. So that really helped inform my commitment to being very clear with my team about my values. And I understand the value and impact of working for a company with a mission to which everyone relates and feels passionate about and feels great conviction for. Had some great sales leaders at Tableau. Dan Miller was our head of global sales while I was there. And Dan Miller imparted upon me this notion of loving leadership, kind of the counter to fear-based leadership. And I've worked in some organizations where fear seemed to be sort of an underlying theme. And I just never responded well to that. And I think, especially now, that type of old school leadership, that's one of the elements of old school leadership that I think doesn't have a place in the world today. And Dan Miller's concept was loving leadership, lead with love. That doesn't mean you can't hold people accountable. In fact, I think holding people professionally accountable to their commitments is an element of loving leadership. Another great leader there was Lynn Smith, who worked with great belief and conviction in the Tableau mission. So that was an exciting company. And then, of course, we were acquired by Salesforce. So I worked for Salesforce as well. It's interesting, over my career, I've had the opportunity to be on the acquirer side at Corporate Visions. We did a number of acquisitions, but I've been acquired a number of times too, notably with Oracle, Hyperion to Oracle, and then Tableau to Salesforce. And Salesforce has an incredible sales machine and great commitment to professional accountability, discipline, rigor. Everyone's responsible for driving pipeline. Everyone's responsible for supporting the sales team. So it was really a remarkable place to work. You mentioned my daughter, Chloe, who's an SDR there. And when I was at Salesforce, I was supported by SDRs, but I didn't have as much exposure to the SDR team as I do now, just because Chloe's a part of it. And something else I greatly admire about Salesforce is that in Chloe's role as an SDR, she knows exactly what she's measured on. She knows exactly what her metrics are. She knows exactly what success means. And it's clear. What she's expected to do is abundantly clear. And she and her peers seem to be doing a really terrific job in achieving their metrics. And then I joined Alight. And so I'm now with Alight. I've been there for about a year. I joined a couple of old friends and colleagues from Hyperion. Greg George is our chief commercial officer. Jim Curtis is my counterpart as the executive vice president of what we call the East business unit. I have the West business unit. We're overseeing our enterprise and mid-market teams. We have a partner in Sarah Joseph, who is our EVP of our strategic accounts team. And it's an exciting place to be. I very intentionally joined this company to work for a company that has a noble purpose, which we have in serving the world. And we have an opportunity now to be part of something great in helping elevate this company. So it's been an exciting run, Randy, in my career. I think if you were to look at my career over the entirety of it, it would look like a well-performing stock up and to the right. But like any sales career, there's been some dips and valleys along the way. And the valleys have been as kind of impactful to me as the peaks. So I'm happy to talk about some of those as our conversation continues.
Absolutely. Well, it's no time like the present. Any valley in particular comes to mind?
Well, I'll tell you, I mean, this is a good segue. I mean, I had an experience early in my career working with a venture-backed startup company. It's going back 25 years. And it was at a time where a lot of folks in the enterprise software world were jumping to .coms because that was kind of where it was at. And, we're going to build these .coms up. And, you hear about .com companies that were just going through the roof and going public. And so my wife and I decided what a great time for me early in our marriage, before we had children, to take a flyer on a .com. And I did. And that was right around the time of the .com implosion. So I went from a really exciting opportunity to something that became quite challenging. And I worked for a CEO at the time who was really crass. I mean, it was not uncommon for him to get in yelling matches with my peers, to curse and rant and rave and kind of scream at employees and that sort of thing. And I was at a really kind of impressionable time in my life. And I remember thinking, man, I have higher aspirations, higher ambitions. Maybe I need to be more like him. And I really vividly recall thinking, like, if I try and model myself after him, it'll be very inauthentic. It won't be me. People will see that I'm kind of faking it a little bit. And so I really made a conscious decision that I'm going to be me. I'm going to lead with my values and strive to lead my life both professionally and personally, in alignment with my values, and I'll let the chips fall where they may, as opposed to kind of trying to embrace this approach. And I'm glad I did, because things have worked out pretty well.
Nice. I just wanted to circle back too, when we were talking about with Dan Miller's leadership in terms of, kind of leading with kindness. And I think a lot of people, especially earlier in career, think, okay, you've got to be a kind of hard ass, or as my kids would say, kind of a hardo. But it's really just more about setting kind of fair expectations, helping, coaching. But the big piece I find that gets missed along the way is kind of giving the feedback. So if we're on a sales call and you don't do something, if I'm the exec or whatever, the rep will say, any feedback for me, may or may not say something, hey, can I give you some feedback? But kind of having those tweaks along the way, so that way then if you don't do that, you wait 3 or 6 months, and then all of a sudden the crap hits the fan and you got to fire the person or whatever without any warning, and that's just sloppy. Was anything else to add kind of from your Dan story there on relative to leading with kindness?
Yeah, well, I totally agree with what you've just said, and I guess I will kind of expand upon what you shared, and that is that I have a kind of a simple but well-defined leadership philosophy that's really been informed and influenced by people like John Boucher and Dan Miller and Lynn Smith, Guthrie Sullivan, another leader I worked with for a long time, John Kondo. And that is that my leadership philosophy is simply, I want to be the leader that I want to have. And the leader that I want to have is someone who makes an effort to know me for my why, knows what drives me, and respects me and appreciates me for more than just my revenue contribution. Someone who challenges me to develop professionally in ways like you just described, is constantly challenging me to improve, sets proper expectations, holds me accountable to those expectations, and helps me develop. And then finally, someone who has my back if I should need it. And I hope I never do, but if I get in a pickle, I want to be certain that I've got a leader who's got me covered. And knowing that's what I want in a leader, that then is exactly the type of leader I want to be for others. It's simple, but that's the framework. And I share this very consistently with the folks that are on my leadership team, and ask them to execute in the same fashion. Be the leader you want to have. No one wants to be a jerk, really.
Yeah, treat sounds simple, but treat people how you want to be treated.
That's right. Yeah, practice the golden rule, central to my whole philosophy.
Not rocket science for sure. So also too, as we're along here, so for those that are watching or listening in, feel free to chime in with any comments or questions. As always, we got Tucker behind the scenes. We'll pull those up. So thanks as always for your help, Tucker. So moving along here. So, okay, we have from Javier. Let's pop in. Thanks for all the invaluable insights, given the performance bell curve that we typically see in sales orgs and or variability with sales performance overall. How are you solving for gaps in the sales competencies of your sellers as you all go to market, and as you think about continuing to build as a sales team in the future and enabling them to build your critical growth goals? So I guess if you say, how do you identify the gaps that your sellers have, and kind of how do you coach for that?
Great question. There's a lot there, so I'll kind of take it as it comes here. But first of all, as I mentioned, I joined Alight to help this company grow and scale, which is exciting. Alight actually today serves 35 million people. About 20% of the U.S. workforce is utilizing some piece of Alight's tech-enabled services in our platform. My job, in partnership with Greg George and Jim Curtis and Sarah Joseph and Kim Gassel, our head of operations, is to help this business scale and grow. And the company's been around for about 40 years. We're a digital spinoff of what was Aon Hewitt. And what we're doing first is bringing in a really robust, what I would submit as a world-class sales enablement organization. We have a woman here named Amy McCormick who's doing a terrific job building up our enablement program. So she's done a number of things. First, in kind of assessing overall the challenges that affect and impact the entire sales organization. So, for example, we knew it was important that we were articulating more consistently a consistent message to help broaden awareness around Alight and elevate the performance of the entire organization. But it's important that we all go to market with a common message about who we are, what we do, what we stand for, and why that matters. So Amy has been instrumental in helping develop that message and then making it available and certifying the entire team. So there's the messaging, which is broad. We've also identified various sales tools that are required to help enable our sales organization. So we have what I believe today to be a very modern sales technology stack with Salesforce and Clary, Outreach, Sixth Sense, all terrific tools helping enable our teams and drive, for me, what are my vital few: coverage, demand gen, and sales execution. In addition, Amy and her team have developed a really robust onboarding program called Bright Beginnings. So there's a lot of work that Amy and team are doing to support the team broadly. But in addition, we've also recently rolled out individual growth plans. And the idea is that there's not a one size fits all curriculum for all salespeople. So instead, or in addition to, I should say, we're developing individual growth plans whereby we're identifying the specific needs at an individual level and then providing enablement to support their specific needs. The other thing I might add is that in addition to all the product training and messaging training that we're doing, I really feel a responsibility to my team to ensure that I'm providing them skills and training that have application to their role at Alight, but also application to them in their lives more broadly. So I've had the great pleasure over my career to get exposed to Sean Acor, who's a happiness researcher and the author of a book called The Happiness Advantage. And I've had the occasion or the opportunity in my past to bring him in to meet with my team and chat about his research and to talk about the importance of practicing happiness as just part of your life. And the idea or his concept is that people have this notion that by virtue of my success at work, when I build a new relationship, when I work in the right, or live in the right house, or have the right job, or drive the right car, I'm going to be happy. But instead, his point is happiness fuels your success. You've got to work on the practice of happiness. So Sean Acre is something in his teachings is something I've been happy to bring to my teams. Also, I've had the opportunity to work with a mental toughness coach named Chris Doris. And he's been a terrific influencer in my life. In fact, I consider myself a disciple of Chris Doris. And I was introduced to Chris by a good friend of mine and former colleague named Larry Schertz, who's now the CRO of Genesis. And Larry and I have known each other since our Hyperion days. And he got acquainted with Chris Doris, and he since introduced me to Chris. And Chris has had great impact on me personally, but I've also brought him to my teams. And I haven't yet introduced him to the team at Alight, but I plan to.
Great. Wow. Very, very thoughtful answer. It's amazing there. All right, Javier, thanks for getting that going. So anybody else, comments or questions, feel free to chime in. So on the Alight side now, any challenges in particular you're working on that you can share?
From a challenge perspective, it's, as I said, we're serving 35 million people and 70% of the Fortune 100. And we know that there's an opportunity for us to do even more, serve more people and more companies in the world. So, my charter is grow and scale the business. So that requires that we continue to evolve and elevate and enable our sales team, continue our really important focus on driving customer success. So those are the areas that we're really focused on building as we grow this organization. So I for one, am very optimistic that we're on the right path. But it's going to take some time, as we continue to take what's great about Alight to a broader market.
Awesome. What executives do you sell to?
CHROs, but increasingly we're working to get to CFOs, CEOs, even VPs of HR, SVPs of total reward. So it's on the HR side. Our purpose, our mission at Alight is noble, and that is that we exist to help people be healthy and financially secure. And so we've got a tech-enabled services platform that's bringing together the whole spectrum of company or employee benefits, from health, wealth to well-being, leaves, absence and navigation, health navigation. So we're helping companies foster greater loyalty and engagement with their employees while helping employers kind of navigate that delicate balance between driving efficiency while fostering a greater employee experience.
Awesome. Great. So getting on to our title topic, values-based leadership. How do you define it?
Well, I referred back to that story I shared earlier about working with the startup company where they had a CEO, and I just chose not to model myself after that particular CEO. So in terms of my definition, I guess as simple as this: I want to know that I'm working for a leader that has a set of values that I can kind of align with. And for that reason, I want to be clear, and I am clear about my core values, which are family, integrity, and respect. And so I believe that, and I've experienced that by being explicit about my values. I'll encourage my teams to be clear about what their values are, so that we can all ensure that we're working in an environment that are in alignment. And so that's simply it. And I believe that employees now more than ever want to be part of an organization that's clear about the mission and its core values.
Absolutely. I think you answered, and it's pretty obvious, but why is it important?
It's important for me because in my work, I'm seeking joy, satisfaction, and fulfillment. It was interesting. You're talking about family. I was recently talking with my wife, Molly, about keeping score in my career, and how in a sales role, maybe this is just true in life, we often keep score based on what's in our bank account. And her point just the other day is, well, maybe it's more important to keep score based on the relationships you have with your wife, your family, and your friends. And I think that's certainly true. So that's a great scoreboard, and I think I'm in pretty good shape there. But again, at work, I want to make sure, considering the amount of time I'm investing in my job, that I'm doing something about which I deeply believe. Again, joy, satisfaction, and fulfillment is my goal at work. And for my teams, I wake up every day consumed with how I can help the members of my team succeed and thrive. And I think helping them do that begins with being clear about my values and my expectations of them in terms of their behavior and their interaction with one another.
Yeah, yeah. How you make them better professionally and personally, and it
Yeah.
seems like kind of the personal aspect kind of comes and goes in terms of what you're allowed to say or not say or whatever. But certainly there for those that want to learn and follow your example, there's a lot to be gained.
Yeah. Right. Randy, one of the areas that I talk a fair amount about, and we spoke about it earlier, is this notion of competitive camaraderie. And that's my cultural approach, and I've been talking about it for years with my teams, and I totally believe in it. And competitive camaraderie to me means that I always strive to foster an environment in which every member of the team feels a deep obligation to be generous with his or her wisdom, insight, and experience in an effort to elevate the performance of the entire team. And having worked in environments where that's happening, it's really profound. It's fun to be a part of that organization where folks feel that obligation, that responsibility. The competitive piece of it, though, of course, is that we still have a responsibility for recognizing and celebrating outstanding team and individual performance. So I always go to great effort to recognize outstanding individual performances. But the catch is that individual success must never come at the expense of the team success. And I speak about this quite a bit, and I think I've done a pretty good job fostering that sort of cultural approach in the companies I've worked for.
That's great. It's kind of like a competitive camaraderie, right? High tides float all boats.
Right. That's the idea.
Awesome. All right. We have another comment. Amen on the value of relationships is a fantastic personal and professional scorecard. So how have you seen the value of the importance of relationships, change over the years, if at all?
Well, I mean, I value them now more than ever. I mean, I've mentioned some folks that have had a real profound impact on my career, and there are many folks that in my career that I've had the opportunity to work with and stay connected to for years and years. I'll tell you one example is this guy, John Kondo, who was a leader I worked with at Hyperion. And one of John's superpowers is that he fosters great loyalty, and he maintains valued connections and helps us stay connected, helps myself stay connected with certain peers. And so that's been a great experience for me to see how John does that. It's something that I aspire to as well. I'd also say that the longer I'm in this space, technology, and kind of this broader tech services business now, the world gets smaller and smaller, Randy. And you're a great example of that. I had the privilege of getting acquainted with you, as you said, 3 or 4 years ago. And as I've dug into your own community, I'm finding how many people we share in common. And again, the longer I'm in it, the smaller the world gets, put it that way. So I think relationships are of paramount importance. And I think the relationships that I've developed over the years are of value to the company that I'm a part of.
Absolutely. And the LinkedIn user relationship economics, I'm pretty sure is Dave Knorr, who's kind of the PhD for relationships, and has taught me everything I know in this space. So shout out to you, Dave. Thanks so much.
Yeah, thanks for the comment, Dave. Hey, you know what? One thing I'd like to say to Randy too is, like, there's so much talk, of course, about AI, and I'm utilizing AI as a seller. My team is utilizing AI to drive efficiency in how we're performing our jobs. We're obviously embedding AI in our technology at Alight. But I don't think that AI is ever going to have the opportunity or the ability to supplant the valuable relationship that we're cultivating. That's just not going to change, and there's always going to be a role for top performing salespeople. I don't think that can ever go away and be replaced with technology.
Yeah, I mean, I always worry these days with kind of the Zooms and COVID and everything else, and they say, okay, yeah, I can't tell you how many times that, oh yeah, I know them and have a relationship. Well, how do you you peel back the onion? Well, I connected with them on LinkedIn. I'm like, you got to be friggin' kidding me. You really think that is a it's like, why not? I'm like, you're just like so far off. But just, a lot of these, again, earlier in career folks that, if they don't get the right, coaching and mentoring from, somebody like you, they really just kind of miss the boat.
Yeah, that's funny. I just the other day, just sort of along these lines, I've been introduced to this sales executive for another company that I want to connect with. A mutual friend introduced us, and we were trying to find time to get together. So we're communicating on LinkedIn, and then we're communicating on email, and trying to find time to get together. We couldn't, and I thought to myself, well, why don't I just pick up the phone?
Hey,
and like, people don't seem to think that way anymore.
yeah.
And even I'm afflicted by that sometimes. And you know what I did? I just picked up the phone and called her. And boy, sometimes it's as simple as that. Just pick up the phone and make a connection. By the way, to your point about Zoom and various technologies, video meetings, I think the best way a leader of mine at Salesforce would say is, like, the best way to build your pipeline is just get in front of your customers. Just go see them. And I hope that's not a lost art. I mean, I know that so many things can be clarified. Relationships can be fostered just by having an in-person conversation.
Oh yeah, and that's a pet peeve for sure. But I hate, especially when you have kind of finance lockdown, and it's okay, it's a good excuse. Well, hey, there's no T&E, I can't travel. I'm like, okay, that just kind of is a, unless you're the best thing since sliced bread, it's just kind of a, just a death spiral, right? So the company, disincents and doesn't fund doing the face-to-face sales calls. I mean, it's just awful.
That's right. Agreed.
All right, so we got a let's see here. Shout out to Kevin Guthrie, class act leader who earned the respect from the entire revenue team as a leader in solution consulting, value management currently. I've admired how Kevin has inspired great performance for all the roles that come together to serve customers. That is what creating followership, great word, followership, looks like for an enterprise software company. Well done, Kevin. And that, I think, is from Todd Gridsby. So thanks so much for that, Todd. And then Nora chimes back in, says, thank you, Randy and Kevin, for your commitment, relationship-centered culture. And yes, this is Dave Knorr. All right. Thanks for that, Dave. So
hey, Randy, I want to talk about Todd Grigsby for a second, if I may. Man, when I was an individual contributor, sales rep at Hyperion, Todd Grigsby was the solution architect with whom I kind of did the most work, or the solution consultant, I think we called it. And he was just a terrific business partner. And we got to the point where it was almost like we could finish one another's sentences. We really took great pride in preparation, understanding our clients' needs, and executing our sales cycles flawlessly. But that came from a lot of close collaboration and close partnership. I mentioned how valuable Hyperion was to me, and what a great time it was to work for that company. So many great leaders have come out of that company. I don't think when we were there, we knew how good we had it, but if you were just kind of go down to the roster of the really talented individuals that worked at Hyperion that I had exposure to and the ability to partner with, it's a really impressive list. I mentioned Larry Schertz and John Kondo. Brad Freitag's a friend of mine and CEO of a company called Claris. Brett Shore is terrific sales leader at Workday. I mentioned Greg George, who I work with at Alight, Jim Curtis, EVP of Sales at Alight. The list just goes on and on. And Todd Grigsby is a very prominent part of that community too, now in a really exciting leadership role at Workday.
Awesome. So great. And then, still coming back to your values-based leadership, then a lot of, all this really ends up resulting in not only you selling more, but it's really the client success that results.
For sure. For sure. I talked about Hyperion as a company that was very committed to customer success. The same was true at Tableau. At Tableau, the most mission-driven, values-based company I've ever worked for. So my experience with Tableau has had great impact on me as well. And we had a very clear mission. We help people see and understand data, very simple. We developed a really robust customer community. I could still rattle off the core values at Tableau because we all believed in them. And one of them was we delight our customers. And we were totally committed to doing so. So yes, making that one of our central values is so critically important.
Wow. So amazing. You do all this, you do the right thing, you sell more, everything's good. So some other things that probably come into play is the integrity piece, which is absolute table stakes, right? There is no gray area.
Yeah. I think one of my most fundamental obligations as a leader is setting proper expectations, both to the team that I'm leading, my expectations of them, but also to the folks to whom I report. It's imperative that I'm setting proper expectations about what business I'm going to generate, and then delivering on that commitment. So to me, that's part of integrity for sure.
Awesome. And then what about kind of around empowerment, right? Everybody wants to kind of control whatever, but the more that you can empower your team, the more productive everybody can be, because you're not tripping over each other. You can divide and conquer, and you really get to see how good they are.
Yeah.
A lot more better results.
One of the things that I always do with my teams at the beginning of each fiscal year, and then periodically I remind folks of what I'd like them to expect of me and my leadership team. And those are things like clear, consistent communication. That stemmed from experience I had from another CEO I worked with that I greatly admire, Jeff Rodak. And I always reflect back upon him as a great leader. And the thing that he did really, really well was he simply communicated consistently and honestly. So I want my teams to know that from me, they can expect consistent, honest communication, that they can expect that I will set proper expectations, that I will foster collaboration, teamwork, team building, that I will focus on knowing them and developing them, and that I'll leave my job with an open mind, an open heart, and an open door. I think by setting letting them know what they can expect of me, then I earn the privilege to ask them what I'd like to expect from them. And that is that they execute their job with precision and pride, that they possess and bring a growth mindset to work every day, that they embrace my cultural approach of competitive camaraderie, and that they help foster connection with the team, because everyone wants to be part of something big. They value connection and community and camaraderie. And I think all those things really matter. I let them know what they can expect of me, and then I ask them what I can expect of them, in pursuit of this kind of objective we talked about when we got started with this conversation, which is my aspirational goal of destination team.
Awesome. So yeah, that's great summary. I couldn't have said it better myself. And it's probably a whole MBA class and then some here packed into the last 40 minutes. So such a great job. So something you might have already touched on it before, but I always like to ask if there's any good PG Randy story you want to share.
I've sort of alluded to this in conversation, Randy, but I was so pleased to get acquainted with you. And then as I dug in more deeply, there were folks that I wanted to know, and I'd often say, well, let me see if Randy knows them. And lo and behold, there were people that I'd say, hey, I'm interested in getting acquainted with this individual. And I'd find out, lo and behold, not only did you know them, but you were personal friends. You may have hired them or promoted them and recently had beers with them. So it's been a privilege for me to associate with you and be part of this community, which I think is so valuable. And, an example is a friend of mine that I've recently gotten close to named Bob Singsank. And Bob he's now retired, but a long time.
Love Bob.
Highly regarded, I do too, highly regarded sales executive. and we got acquainted through golf. And we were chatting at a party one time, and somehow your name came up in conversation. And it was just a funny example, just a living example of what I'm describing right now, which is this network that you've developed and continue to foster, and the goodwill you've created among this culture is vast. And I'm just pleased and honored to be a part of it.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Side note, you have to have asked Bob about the time when he used to work for me at Sun and then went to HP. I brought him over to run the West at HP, and the kind of his introductory meeting to the team, who everybody always thinks they always know what's going on, and they had no idea, but he was a huge success, and that was such a great move for me for sure. So
he told me the story. He has told me the story, so yeah, I'm aware of it.
So anyway, so Kevin, you've been awesome. Thank you so much. So impactful. All right, we got Matthew here coming in. Kevin, working with you at Tableau was a privilege, and I can't thank you enough for your mentorship. One of the values you emphasized was a growth mindset. I'm curious what resources, channels you're plugged into to stay on top of personal and professional development. So maybe you can kind of briefly answer, that'd be great.
Well, thanks for asking, Matthew. Boy, one of the great joys of my career is helping, is mentor and guide superstars, up and coming superstars. And Matthew Gu is one of them. So Matthew and I have maintained a relationship for several years, and it's very fulfilling for me to do that. And I take pride in helping offer, some guidance and support to other up and comers if I can. I mentioned Chris Doris, and if anyone's interested, his website is www.christopherdoris.com. And I'm such a fan because the teachings and training that he provides is of great value to me. And for that reason, I want to bring it to my team. I know I've mentioned him to Matt Gu before, but like, for example, I have a list of my mantras on my wall right to the left of me that come from Chris Doris's book of mantras. One is, worry is a misuse of imagination. I love that one. Another one is, I respond to all of life with gratitude and enthusiasm. A third is, nervous can't exist in service. So these are just examples, but Chris Doris is a resource that I lean into quite a bit. I don't know that, Matt, this is answering a question directly, but these are valuable services that I enlist in supporting my life, So Chris Doris is one, Sean Acor is another one. I just had the opportunity to get exposed to another thought leader for me. Her name is Heather Deniston, and she leads a business called Well Fit and Fed. And she led a presentation about kind of taking care of the whole self, from fitness to what you eat, to how you lead, to how you think, to how you live your life. And she's someone I'm interested in learning more from as well. So Sean Acor, happiness; Chris Doris, mental toughness; now Heather Dennison is something that's kind of captured my attention too.
Awesome. Well, I think you definitely set a podcast record for us on number of shout outs. So
I have a lot of people to thank, Randy. I mean, like I said, my career's been fulfilling. It's been challenging. It's been great. It's been hard. But boy, I've had the opportunity to be exposed to so many great people who've had such a profound impact and influence on me. I'm grateful for it.
Awesome. Congrats for sure.
Thank you.
Well done. So coming up next week, we have John Hinshaw. He was a longtime CIO at Boeing, Verizon, and HP. Recently, Chief Operating Officer at HSBC, just retired, runs a great vineyard called Blackbird Vineyards there in Napa. And then following week, Monty Finkelstein, who was a longtime CIO, CTO, and Wall Street, now at Intel. And then Dave Donatelli, who's CEO at Riverbed, then Dave Knorr himself, and then Dan Belanger, who's at NICE. So great lineup between now and the rest of the year. So Tucker, thanks for your help behind the scenes. Kevin, you're awesome. After we disconnect, make sure you stay on, and everybody have a great day and happy selling.
Thank you very much.